Picture this. You're in a high-stakes job interview, but there's a twist. Instead of you being on the hot seat, it's your interviewer who's under pressure. The tension in the room is palpable, each question you ask digging deeper into their past. The stakes are high because their history could either make or break your future. Then, with one sharp question, you expose something they've been hiding for years. That moment is a game changer. The room goes silent, and everyone realizes the truth can no longer be ignored. Now, let's take that tension and turn it up a notch. Meet Pam Bondi, a fierce prosecutor with a reputation for uncovering the truth and exposing corruption. Her opponent? Hillary Clinton, a political figure whose past is as controversial as it is complicated. The stage is set for a dramatic showdown at the 2025 congressional hearing. Bondi isn't just another prosecutor. She's a force to be reckoned with, ready to expose the truths that have long been buried. This isn't just about politics. This is about something much bigger: justice, truth, and the public's right to know what's been hidden from them for so long. The hearing is more than a legal battle. It's an emotional roller coaster. With so much on the line, the stakes couldn't be higher. Bondi's questions are sharp, calculated, and she's determined to get to the heart of the matter. But Clinton? Well, she's used to being on the defensive, always finding a way to slip through the cracks. But this time, will she get away with it? Or is this finally the moment when the truth catches up with her? As the tension builds and Bondi's relentless pursuit of the truth unfolds, the question remains: will Clinton finally face the consequences of her past actions, or will she walk away unscathed? Once again, the clock is ticking, and everyone is waiting for the answer. Imagine a moment where you accidentally send an email to the wrong person. It's something simple, maybe an embarrassing message or a small slip-up that makes you cringe when you realize. But now, imagine that feeling multiplied by 33,000 emails. Suddenly, every word, every secret you thought was safe is exposed to the world. Trying to hide it? Almost impossible. That's the reality Hillary Clinton faced when the infamous email scandal came to light. But this wasn't just about a single email sent to the wrong person. No, this was about deleted messages, a cover-up, and an attempt to rewrite history. When Pam Bondi entered that 2025 congressional hearing, she walked in like a lion stepping into the den, ready to take on her prey. The entire world was watching. Bondi had the weight of the truth on her side, and she knew how to use it. With confidence, she laid out the first major blow to Clinton's defense: the deleted emails. These weren't just any emails. They were critical, secretive, and vanished after subpoenas were issued. Bondi wasn't holding back. She was showing the world what Clinton tried so hard to hide. Bondi's strategy was simple yet powerful. She didn't frame Clinton's actions as a simple mistake. She framed it as a deliberate, calculated effort to erase the truth, to dodge accountability, and to manipulate public perception. Every deleted email, every attempt to cover up, told a story. Bondi wasn't going to let Clinton spin this into something harmless. No, this was bigger. This was about what was being hidden from the public and why. The timeline was key. Bondi laid it out for the audience, step by step. The emails were deleted right after Clinton's team received subpoenas. This wasn't a coincidence. This was intentional. Clinton's team had attempted to dismiss the whole thing by claiming the emails were just about personal matters, like yoga plans and other irrelevant things. But as Bondi pointed out, that explanation didn't add up. Imagine if you tried deleting your work emails and got caught. What would happen to you? Bondi asked the room. The question wasn't just rhetorical. It was meant to make people think. If a regular person tried to delete their work emails after being asked to turn them over, the consequences would be severe. So why should Clinton be treated any differently? Clinton's defense was predictable. She denied, distracted, and dismissed. That's what she had done time and time again. First, she tried to downplay the severity of the situation by claiming the emails were meaningless. Then, when that didn't work, she focused on distractions, pointing fingers elsewhere. But Bondi wasn't buying it. She knew exactly how to tear down those defenses. If those emails were harmless, why go to such lengths to delete them? Why destroy your phones? Why risk your political career? Bondi asked, pressing her point. Those were logical, straightforward questions that Clinton couldn't easily answer. The audience couldn't ignore them either. If the emails truly didn't matter, why would someone go so far to destroy them? As the hearing continued, the room was filled with tension. Bondi's line of questioning made everyone wonder, why hadn't Clinton been held accountable for this? After all, these emails weren't just deleted by accident. They were erased with a clear intent to hide something. Bondi was not just revealing what had happened. She was hinting at something much deeper, something more sinister. The audience was left with a question hanging in the air. Was there a larger conspiracy at play? Was the political elite protecting Clinton from facing the consequences of her actions? Bondi wasn't just exposing a simple cover-up. She was challenging the system that allowed such things to happen. With each word she spoke, the stakes grew higher. The audience couldn't look away. Would Clinton finally be held accountable for the email scandal? Would Bondi's relentless pursuit of the truth uncover the secrets that had been kept hidden for so long? Or would Clinton's political connections allow her to slip away once again? The suspense was thick. Bondi wasn't finished yet. This was just the beginning of what promised to be a showdown that would captivate the entire nation. Imagine a small charity event you once attended. Everyone was gathered there with good intentions, all of them hoping their donations would help those in need. But as the event unfolded, it became clear that something was off. The money that was meant to go toward a noble cause somehow disappeared into someone's pockets, leaving the people who had donated feeling betrayed. Now, imagine that this wasn't just a small event, but a massive foundation, one with billions of dollars flowing through it and countless political deals happening behind closed doors. The betrayal doesn't just sting for a few people. It echoes through entire nations, affecting countless lives. This is exactly what Pam Bondi was about to uncover in her next explosive revelation during the 2025 congressional hearing. Bondi wasn't just digging into deleted emails and secretive messages. No, she was going after something far bigger: the Clinton Foundation and its suspicious ties to arms deals. This was a revelation that would shake the very foundations of American politics. The Clinton Foundation, a philanthropic organization known for its charitable work, had received millions of dollars in donations from foreign entities. On the surface, it looked like a charity supporting global causes. But as Bondi started to peel back the layers, a much darker reality began to emerge. Many of these donations were linked directly to arms deals, the kind of transactions that could make or break countries. And in this case, they were all tied to decisions that Hillary Clinton made during her time as Secretary of State. Bondi had the proof. Leaked emails began to surface, revealing the undeniable connections between Clinton's foreign policy decisions and the financial donations that flowed into her foundation. These weren't just random contributions. They were carefully timed donations, made by entities that stood to gain from the very decisions Clinton was making. It was clear now. There was a pattern, one that was impossible to ignore. "It's a simple quid pro quo," Bondi said with a cold precision that sent a chill through the room. "You scratch my back, I scratch yours." The message was clear. Political favors were being exchanged for cash, and the public was none the wiser. Bondi wasn't just revealing a political scandal. She was exposing a deeper web of corruption that had long been hidden behind the veil of charity work. This wasn't just about money. It was about lives. The deals Clinton made weren't just a matter of political maneuvering. They were decisions that directly impacted innocent people. Bondi framed it in a way that hit home for everyone in that room. "This is not just about money," she said. "This is about lives. You made decisions that put innocent people at risk." She wasn't just pointing fingers. She was showing the world the human cost of Clinton's actions. To drive her point home, Bondi brought the audience to a personal place. "Imagine selling out your own values for a little extra cash," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "What if the things you sold out weren't just money, but your morals, your integrity?" The room grew tense as everyone, from the politicians to the audience watching at home, began to feel the weight of the question. Selling out isn't just a betrayal of yourself. It's a betrayal of everyone who believes in you. For Clinton, it wasn't just about accepting donations. It was about making life-altering decisions for the sake of personal gain, no matter the cost to the people she was supposed to serve. Clinton, as expected, went into defensive mode. Her response was familiar. She deflected. She denied. And, of course, she dismissed the accusations. All donations were transparent, Clinton claimed, trying to downplay the scandal. She insisted that there was no wrongdoing and that everything had been above board. But Bondi wasn't buying it. She knew how to cut through the smoke and mirrors. "Why then, Hillary," she pressed, "did your office make decisions that benefited those who funded your foundation?" That simple question hit like a hammer, shattering the walls Clinton had tried so desperately to build around her defense. Bondi's questioning wasn't just logical, it was relentless. If the donations were truly innocent, why did the Clinton Foundation see so much financial backing from entities that stood to benefit from the decisions Clinton made? Why were key arms deals pushed through, decisions that clearly favored the donors over the well-being of the American people or global security? It didn't take a political analyst to see the glaring conflict of interest at play. As Bondi continued to expose the connections, the room became electric with tension. This wasn't just about Clinton's past decisions anymore. This was about a system that allowed people in power to profit from their positions. Bondi was revealing how easy it was for money to influence politics, how millions of dollars in donations could sway decisions that impacted the lives of everyday people. And the deeper Bondi dug, the more it became clear. This wasn't just a scandal. It was a systemic failure that reached into the heart of government itself. The question that hung over the entire hearing was this: how many more decisions had been influenced by money? How many more deals had been made in secret, all for the sake of political gain? Clinton's defense began to crack, and with every new piece of evidence Bondi presented, the story only grew darker. Clinton could no longer claim that everything was above board. She could no longer pretend that the millions of dollars flooding into her foundation had no strings attached. The ties between her political decisions and the financial backers were too strong, too undeniable. The hearing was no longer just about Clinton's role in these arms deals. It was about exposing the larger problem of corruption and influence in politics. Bondi wasn't just taking on Clinton. She was taking on a broken system that allowed people like Clinton to use their positions of power for personal gain, regardless of the consequences for the rest of the world. The stakes had never been higher, and Bondi was making sure that everyone knew it. This wasn't just about a political scandal. This was about holding people in power accountable, no matter who they were or how high they had risen. Imagine a situation where you are responsible for the safety and well-being of your colleagues, friends, or loved ones. You're their protector, the person they trust to ensure their safety in times of danger. Now picture this. A crucial request for help comes in, a desperate call for support, but for some reason, that request is ignored. The very people who rely on you are left vulnerable and exposed. How would you feel? How could you live with that guilt, knowing that someone's life could have been saved if only you had acted? That is the reality that many people faced when the Benghazi tragedy unfolded. It was a situation where lives were lost, not because of some unforeseen disaster, but because of inaction, mismanagement, and, at worst, deception. This tragedy is at the heart of what Pam Bondi wanted to expose in her relentless attack during the congressional hearings. As she went through her evidence, she made it clear that what happened in Benghazi was not some unforeseeable accident. It was the result of a series of decisions made by Hillary Clinton and her department. Bondi laid it all bare for the world to see. The truth was undeniable. Hundreds of requests for better security at the U.S. consulate in Benghazi had been ignored. These weren't just administrative errors or miscommunications. These were desperate pleas for help that went unanswered, and people paid the ultimate price for that inaction. Bondi presented emails, security logs, and testimonies that confirmed what many had suspected for years. Security personnel on the ground in Benghazi had repeatedly requested additional support, additional resources, and better protection. Yet, time after time, these requests were dismissed. Bondi's presentation of this evidence was methodical, each new piece of information building upon the last. The audience could feel the emotional weight of each revelation. These were not just numbers on a screen or names in a report. They were real people, brave Americans who had served their country in one of the most dangerous parts of the world. Their lives had been cut short because they had been abandoned by the very people who were supposed to protect them. Bondi's words resonated with the audience as she said, These are not just statistics. These were real lives, real families, real sacrifices. She wasn't just recounting a tragic event. She was reminding everyone of the human cost of political decisions. The more Bondi spoke, the more it became clear that this wasn't just about one terrible night in Benghazi. This was about a pattern of disregard for the safety of American personnel in dangerous parts of the world. The decisions made, or rather, the decisions not made, had consequences that were far-reaching and devastating. As the room listened in silence, Clinton's defense began to take shape. Her strategy was predictable, but no less disingenuous. She claimed that her department had simply been misinformed. "We didn't know what was happening in Benghazi," she said. "We were misinformed." Her words, meant to deflect responsibility, fell flat. Bondi wasn't fooled. She shot back with a piercing question that cut through the defense. "How many times did you deny the requests for help, Hillary? How many lives would have been saved if you had acted sooner?" There was no answer to that question, at least not one that would satisfy anyone with a shred of empathy or common sense. To make her point even more personal, Bondi asked the audience to imagine a situation close to home. Imagine if your child, your best friend, or your partner called you for help, and you ignored them, she said. What would that make you? How would you explain it to them? The room fell quiet as people began to reflect on the weight of that question. It wasn't just a political issue anymore. It was a matter of personal responsibility, of human decency. How could anyone in a position of power, anyone with the ability to help, simply turn a blind eye to the suffering of others? The pain of the Benghazi tragedy wasn't just felt by the families of those who died that night. It was felt by the entire nation. Americans are taught to believe that their government will protect them, that when they are in danger, their country will respond. The Benghazi tragedy shattered that trust. It exposed a failure at the highest levels of government, and no amount of deflection or finger-pointing could change that. What made the tragedy even harder to bear was the fact that the requests for help were not just about securing more resources or more manpower. They were about ensuring the safety of American lives. The people who died in Benghazi weren't asking for luxuries or special treatment. They were asking for the bare minimum, the security they needed to carry out their duties and to return home safe at the end of the day. And yet, those requests were ignored, dismissed as if they didn't matter. In the face of such negligence, it was impossible for anyone to believe that this was simply a case of miscommunication. Bondi didn't let the emotional weight of the situation slide. She made sure that the audience, and the world watching at home, understood the true cost of Clinton's inaction. It wasn't just a failure of foreign policy. It was a failure of humanity. These weren't just abstract political figures. These were real people with families, dreams, and futures ahead of them. And they were taken from the world because of a system that valued politics over human lives. Clinton's defense crumbled as the facts came to light. The truth was undeniable. No matter how many times she repeated her claim that her department had been misinformed, the evidence told a different story. It told a story of ignored requests, of lives that could have been saved if only someone had bothered to listen. Bondi wasn't just pointing out Clinton's mistakes. She was holding her accountable for the lives that were lost as a result. The Benghazi tragedy wasn't just an isolated incident. It was a reflection of a deeper issue, one that went beyond the actions of any one person. It was a failure of the entire system, one that put politics and power above the lives of those who risked everything to serve their country. Bondi's relentless pursuit of the truth was a reminder that no one, no matter how high their position, should ever be above accountability. As the hearing came to a close, the question lingered in the air. How could such a tragedy happen? How could so many people make decisions that ultimately cost lives? The answer, while uncomfortable, was clear. It was a result of neglect, of apathy, and of a failure to take responsibility for one's actions. The victims of the Benghazi tragedy deserved better, and they still do. In the final moments of the hearings, Pam Bondi turned the spotlight on one of the most significant issues: Hillary Clinton's public statements versus the truth she knew in private. Bondi made it clear that Clinton had knowingly misled the American people. On television, Clinton portrayed the attack in Benghazi as a spontaneous protest sparked by an inflammatory video. That was the story she pushed to the public. the story that was repeated by the media and politicians alike. But behind closed doors, Clinton privately acknowledged the reality. It was a premeditated terrorist attack. Bondi didn't let this contradiction slide. "You told the American people one thing, but you knew the truth and chose to lie," Bondi said. She wasn't just talking about a political misstep or a slip-up. She was pointing out a deliberate decision to deceive. Clinton had chosen to protect her image, to avoid the political fallout of a terrorist attack on American soil, even if it meant lying to the public about what really happened. Bondi's words cut deep, as she showed that the public was deliberately misled. And for what purpose? To maintain control over a narrative that would protect Clinton and her colleagues, even if it came at the cost of truth and transparency. This issue wasn't just about Clinton's actions. It was about the public trust. When politicians lie to the people they are supposed to serve, they undermine the very foundation of democracy. Trust is the glue that holds society together, and when it is broken, it creates a deep wound. Bondi made it clear that this wasn't just about one politician's mistakes. It was about a systemic failure of leadership, a betrayal of the people who had trusted the government to be honest, open, and accountable. In her closing statement, Bondi said, "You've betrayed the people you swore to protect. You have deceived us all for too long. But now, we're finally getting the truth." Her words echoed in the room. The public had been lied to for months, possibly years, and now the truth was coming out. There was no more hiding, no more pretending. The veil of deception was being lifted, and the people who had been affected by the Benghazi attack, the victims' families, the American public, the world, were finally starting to see the reality of what had happened that night. The emotional climax of Bondi's argument wasn't just about the lies, though. It was about accountability. "This is about accountability, justice, and the future of the nation," she said. She wasn't just calling for Clinton to be held responsible. She was calling for a moment of reflection, a moment where the country could ask itself what kind of leadership it wanted. The truth had come to light, and now it was time for the nation to decide whether it would accept this deception or demand change. Would the people of the United States continue to allow politicians to lie and manipulate the truth, or would they rise up and insist on a government that was held accountable for its actions? Bondi's final words were a rallying cry for the American people. We all deserve the truth. We all deserve to know what really happened. And today, we finally get that. It was a powerful conclusion to a long and painful journey for the families of the victims and the public at large. It wasn't just about uncovering the truth of one tragic night. It was about ensuring that such lies would never be allowed to stand again. It was about a commitment to transparency and integrity in government, values that, once lost, are incredibly difficult to restore. In the end, this wasn't just a fight for justice for the lives lost in Benghazi. It was a fight for the soul of the nation. It was about rebuilding the trust that had been shattered by political deceit. Bondi's message was clear. The public had been lied to for too long, but now, the truth had surfaced, and it was time for the American people to decide what they wanted from their leaders going forward. Would they stand by those who had betrayed them, or would they demand accountability and change? The future of the nation was, in many ways, at stake, and the question was whether the public was ready to rise up and demand the truth. The aftermath of the Benghazi hearings has left the political world in turmoil. Pam Bondi's relentless questioning, her spotlighting of Hillary Clinton's actions and decisions, has sparked a political wildfire that will not die down anytime soon. The consequences of these revelations are far-reaching, and the nation is now left to grapple with the truth. The lies that were told, the lives that were lost, and the years of deception have all come to light. The question now is, what happens next? How will Clinton, the government, and the American people move forward after such a dramatic unraveling of the facts? This story brings everything full circle. It highlights the importance of accountability in politics. No matter how much power someone holds, no matter how carefully they try to control the narrative, the truth has a way of emerging. The revelations about the Benghazi attack are a painful reminder that when those in power fail to act with integrity, the consequences can be devastating. But the story also shows that the truth cannot be buried forever. Eventually, it will be exposed, no matter how hard people try to hide it. This is the big picture. Accountability matters. The truth matters. For the viewers, This is not just a political drama. It is a moment to reflect on the state of leadership, integrity, and transparency in our society. The question now is, what kind of future do we want? Do we want to live in a world where those in positions of power can deceive us without consequence? Or do we want to create a future where truth and justice are the foundations of our political system? The actions taken in the aftermath of these revelations will shape the future. It's up to each of us to ask, what kind of leadership do we expect, and how can we ensure that accountability is always prioritized? The choice, ultimately, lies with the people.